afternoon, our dear esteemed viewers. Tonight we're going to discuss geopolitics. And the geopolitics that we're discussing, we're going to focus our conversation on coup d'etats that has recently happened in Niger, but also concentrate on other coups that have happened in the previous years, especially 2020, 2021, and maybe in the latter years as well. But joining me in tonight's topic, which is the Niger coup, have military takeovers offered the desired change? So to discuss tonight's topic, I am joined by a panel of students who I hold them with so much high regard to do justice to tonight's topic. To right on my extreme left, a gentleman called Philip Mulisa. Philip Mulisa will later on introduce himself, the institution he's from, and let you know who he is. Right next to Philip, a gentleman who is also a familiar face to this show from Islamic University in Uganda, a gentleman by the names Nyombi Haruna. Thank you for joining us. Right next to Nyombi, we are joined by the only lady on the show, Miss Gloria. You're most welcome. Last but not least, the gentleman from Uganda Christian University, Chinobere Andrew. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much.
So in this order of from Chinobere Andrew right up to Philip Mulisa, kindly introduce yourself and let them say hello to the viewers.
Yes, thank you very much, Drake, for having me once again. It's always a pleasure. My name is Chinobere Andrew Marvin. I'm a third-year law student at Uganda Christian University. It's really a pleasure to always be here discussing issues that may be important but it's always a pleasure and I look forward to a very wonderful discussion.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrew. We're looking forward to definitely having a wonderful and fruitful discussion with you on the panel. Miss Gloria.
Yes, thank you, Drake. Good afternoon, our viewers. My name is Ostaru Nemembe Gloria. I'm a graduate from Chambogo University and a community development worker. I'm so glad being here and linking up with everyone. It has been a long time, but we'll do justice to that topic tonight.
Nice having you on the show, and we're very happy to have you here as well. Nyombi.
Yes, please. Good afternoon, viewers. Good afternoon, my fellow panelists. It's a pleasure to be here always, Drake, and I'm so happy to be here. I'm Nyombi Haruna from the Islamic University in Uganda, Kampala campus. I'm a law student. Maybe I hadn't told you. I'm also the coordinator for the Human Rights Association, Islamic University, Kampala campus.
Nice.
Yeah, looking forward to a fruitful discussion.
Definitely, we're looking forward to having and getting your humanitarian insights to tonight's conversation. Thank you. Philip Mulisa, the Pan-Africanist.
Yes, good afternoon to the viewer there and my fellow panelists. Philip Mulisa is my name. Very proud African, a journalist by training, and I'm really glad to share a panel with these intellectuals and big people of this land.
All right, I'm going to start with you, Philip. You're a Pan-Africanist, says your profile and bio. And that is something that sparks interest in me to start tonight's conversation. For purposes of context, Africa has, ever since post-colonial era, we have been trying to practice democracy, and it seems that in most African countries, it's seemingly not working to the desired aim or goal that it's supposed to be. But other than that, right now what we're seeing recently, we are seeing coup d'etats that are going on, which is definitely causing, definitely making people think, are coup d'etats the reason, or are coup d'etats options for the desired change? So Philip, kindly give us a historical context to tonight's conversation and a perspective that relates to tonight's conversation.
Thank you, Drake. Now, coup d'etats, as you call it, is something that is so, if I may say, very common in the world, not just Africa. When you date back to the 1950s, where you mentioned post-independent Africa, I think that dates back to the 1950s, where we saw the Ghanas in 1957, then other subsequent independent countries that came in. I think since then the world has seen close to about 487 coups around there. 215 of these have been in Africa, attempted coups, to be specific. 215 have been on the African continent, and about 107 have been successful. That tells you how the politics is running in Africa. And making it more viable, clear, these coups have happened in 45 of the 54 nations of Africa. That means more than 3/4 of the African continent has experienced this, whether you call it a challenge or an opportunity. That's something to discuss later. When you talk about Niger, they've had more than 6 coups since their independence. That's around 1960. And the only change of government they've had where it was not a coup was the coming of this president that was overthrown a few days ago, His Excellency Mohamed Bazoum, 2021. All the previous leaders Niger has had come through coups, military coups. And people thought, and the world thought, that with this change, then Niger was on a trajectory to create a new breed of situations in that part of the world. And it's either unfortunate to see that they're backsliding, and hopefully this matter is resolved really soon. And yeah.
Definitely. Thank you. That's a very elaborate and quite detailed context that you give us historically, right from the time where we have seen Africa experiencing close to 480 coups that have happened, and 107 of them have been successful, of which more than 3/4 of the African continent has experienced coups. But tonight our focus is on Niger. Niger, as you've said, they have had close to 6 coups from its inception of independence in the 1960s, and more recently, now on 26th July, we saw a coup happening. They overthrew President Bazoum out of office, and then we saw the junta taking over power. Now, I'll get to you, my brother Nyombi. I'd like us to then now investigate the political and economic consequences, first of all, this has on the country of Niger, but also the impact that that particular coup has on the neighboring countries next to Niger, but also at the continent at large, the political and economic consequences of such a coup.
Drake and colleagues, Niger's problem can be expanded to what we are facing in the entire continent. It represents what we are as Africans, particularly I will be talking about Africa, given our background from the time we got our independence in the respective countries. Probably we weren't ready for independence, I should say this. It's quite unfortunate. On the humanitarian basis, the common people suffer a lot. But you realize that these coups emerge out of certain situations. And one of them is a governance problem that we are faced with as Africa. The leaders that we put into power are even those who are seeking for leadership. Most of them don't know, probably they know, but we have got that kind of greed among the leaders and even those who wish to take on power. In other words, they are not looking at the general picture of the common people, for the well-being of the common people. You realize, let's talk about Niger. This Oster president, Mr. Mohamed, I think came into office about 2 years ago.
True.
But as it is the case in many African countries, once one gets to power, even if it's just a year into office, they start planning on how they integrate their leadership. In other words, they want to try to build a life presidency from time of inception without giving regard to putting their countries first. You know, you're trying to build a nation by putting yourself first before your country. And people are looking at this, both within the armies and even the common people, the civilians. Unfortunately, we have always not given chance to our citizens be decisive on how our countries are run. And so we are left with no option as the citizens. So this gives room to the people, maybe those in the military, because at least now for them they have guns. And the fact that they have guns, they have some kind of power that they can exercise regrettably, not like the citizens would. We, the citizens, the only power that we have is to go and vote. But that's not available for us. Even where there are elections, you realize they're just cosmetic. Where we're having democracy, the purported democracies here in Africa, wherever, you'll find there are things that are not moving on well, whether an election. So basically, it's a governance issue that's affecting all of us.
Yeah.
And so it gives room to everyone that thinks things are not going on well to do whatever they can. So most probably, these young leaders, these young military men, I'm calling them because they are, you realize that in most of these schools, especially the latest ones,
They're relatively young.
these are young people in the army, not even the high-ranking officers. Why? They are in the army, but they are looking at several aspects in their countries which are not good. And so they take chance. They try out. Unfortunately, it's regrettable because it's always at the expense of the citizens,
True.
the common people. There will be bloodshed. You get that?
Mm.
So it's quite unfortunate, but it's mostly governance issue, disrespect of the rule of law and constitutionalism that is breeding this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Gloria,
Yeah.
when I was listening to Nyombi, he said, when he started his speech, Africa, I think we weren't ready for independence. That right now, what we're facing could be as a result of our lack or our unpreparedness for the independence. That's his assertion. And it says the reasons why we're experiencing these coups are one, the reason as to why there's poor governance in Africa, there is greed, and there's disrespect for rule of law. Now, I want us to steer this conversation to the aspect of democracy, democracy vis-a-vis military coups. You understand that democracy is the rule of the people, by the people, for the people. Yes?
Yes.
Military coups is the power of the gun. And right now what we're experiencing is the power of the people has failed to grant people the leaders that they desire. Rather, what we are seeing, that the gun is taking precedence and giving us leaders that possibly people even do not know. What's your take on that?
Thank you, Drake. Before I submit on, before we steer up the discussion, something little to add on what pre-current speaker has said. Yeah, it is true and it is evident. The pre-current situations within the African states where we've seen most of these coups taking place, and we get to realize most of the problems we face are almost the same.
Yeah.
We get to see that the people that are on the grassroots really have little say, and it is the people that are on the top. I would say, I think the army is the closest body to the president, all those high offices in the state, and you get to realize they have the power to take on whatever they feel is right, because they're equipped, and I think they have some knowledge of what is going on in the closed doors in the president's offices. And so this somehow has made it of no value to someone that is down to get to have a say in issues that are affecting the state. Yeah, coming back to what you've just asked, yeah, I feel it is something that is being intensified apparently, leaving the common person with nothing to do but rather watch what is taking place. And we've gotten to see this also stirring up other foreign countries coming in to give in aid. But it's still taking us back to those times where we're being colonized, which I would say is not something good, because it's bringing up the power that we are trying to actually do away with. So to be, I feel it is not something right. It would be the people and the leaders that we should say, assume they can take on the role of bringing about change, because these are all around issues to do with the economy, things to do with insecurity, things to do with the well-being of the people. But we get to realize when this comes in, at some point they are being distorted, because we're not using the rightful way to overcome what is happening. So rather democracy would count, but just like you said, it has taken on another trend which is not apparently actually functioning. It just happens for the sake. But the desired outcomes are actually something I think that was foreseen before by the people that are in power. So to me, I would feel as concerned citizens within Niger and Africa at large, as Africans, we should desire to have back democracy, because it is the biggest voice that will speak out for the people within the nations and the states we have today.
Okay.
Yes.
Democracy, the biggest voice that would speak for the people in the nations that we have today. Powerful. Andrew, over the last week when the Russia-Africa summit was held in Moscow, the Kremlin, I was listening to the speech of the president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré. Ibrahim Traoré, when he was making his speech, he said, in Africa, when a junta takes over power from a person who supposedly elected by the citizens, and this person who was elected by the citizens is corrupt, he's not delivering to the citizens, you'd find that oftentimes the Western worlds would want to interfere and say, you are not democratic and you're not practicing democracy. Now, in a situation whereby as a leader you're supposed to offer accountability, transparency, deliver to the citizens, the aspect of social contract arises. My question still is similar in line with what I asked Ms. Gloria, that is it the time that we should opt possibly now for military coups instead of democracy, by the fact that in Africa we are seeing that democracy has taken a toll and seemingly failed in many African states?
Okay. Thank you very much, Drake. Maybe before I indulge into what you have asked, just to put this into concept, this recent wave of military coups, we have had a recent wave that started in 2020, and in 2021, only 2021, 1 year like this, we had around 6 coup attempts, and from those 6, 4 of them were successful. That shows you how serious this is, and Niger is just a recent victim of this whole situation. So that shows you how serious this is, And from what you have asked me, the Africa-Russia summit, it was a very good one, and the remarks of the president of was it Guinea-Bissau? It is something that is Burkina Faso. Sorry, it is something that is so sad. First and foremost, I condemn that barbaric kind of practice of overthrow of governments just because you feel like there's some kind of discontention. First and foremost, a lot of things come with these military coups, you know, because you know that saying that when two elephants are fighting,
The grass
it's
suffers.
the grass that is suffering. That is what is happening in Niger right now. These people are complaining that there is corruption, there's so much involvement of the French and all that. But what is coming? What are the effects that are coming with this? First of all, to the person you claim you are fighting for. You get, this is a president who has not been in power for more than 2 years. But you're coming up and you're saying that this and this is happening. You know, before you start your kind of judgments and what, I believe there are so many democratic ways in which all these issues can be, you know,
But Andrew,
sorted.
you're saying so many democratic ways.
Yes.
You've seen that people have risen. People were jubilant on the streets of Niger, in the city of Niamey. People were happy.
Yeah.
People were jubilant. Now, what other way could then people opt for if democracy is failing? Military coups is offering them happiness.
You know, when these people come up, mainly the military, usually when they come up to take power, they be having all their reasons as why they are doing this. You know, in Niger, it's mainly the insurgencies by ISIL, Al Qaeda, and the corruption involvement of France in their matters. But what is this coming with? You realize that at the end of the day, this is not going to resolve so much. You know, it will just be another change of government that will be another that will maybe attract another coup. You know, in Equatorial Guinea, they had 2 coups in the same year because there was a military officer who was claiming that this government is so bad, decided to overthrow the government. After some time, they come and overthrow him in the same year. So what is this showing you? That this is just a few individuals who are maybe excited. Yes, they have the ideologies, but they're also excited and they just want to maybe come and also test the seat, if I can say. You get, so at the end of the day, this is just another change of power that is happening because of maybe selfish interests. Because if you look at all these military regimes and all that has been happening, there's really not so much that they have done. You get, it's just another wave of people that comes in and also or is probably overthrown or also leaves the way they came in. You get, so we should put meaning to these things. You get, the question you asked me was referring to whether this should be the kind of way we should take because we feel like we are disgruntled. No, 100% no. Why? Because first and foremost, if we believe that these governments we have put in power democratically, you know, because however much we say that these governments are not working, we believe, at least that is what we have at the back of our minds, that these are the democratic governments that we have put in power. What we have to do, instead of resorting to coups and all that and this barbaric means of takeover of power, is go back to the grassroots. You know, what kind of leaders are we putting into power? You know, in Africa, in Africa, let me talk about in Uganda. In Uganda, we have politics of excitement. You know, we have people who are put into power because the people who are putting them into power are excited. The electorate is excited. You know, at the end of the day, you're going to put someone into power who is just going to go enrich themselves and then they go away. You get? So we should go back to the grassroots and look out for the leaders we are putting into power. Because if you say that you have elected a president who has been into power for just 2 years and you're already throwing them out because you believe they have not done the best, then that is just telling us that even these guys who have come, these guys who are claiming to be saviors, may end up doing the same. Because we take it that now that is the reflection of the people you're having. So I don't think these coups are really what people should be taking on as something to resolve all their grievances. You know, maybe what all these people should do is, when the time for election comes, if at all the democracy is there, what we need to do is now improve on the democracy. Things such as voters' bribery, you know, the funny things that happen during elections, to make the election process more transparent, so that we bring up leaders who are competent, so that we avoid such things. The West and the East, the European countries, they're excited by this stuff. You get, for us, we are here saying that maybe we should adopt these means of overthrow of governments. For them, they are benefiting from this. You get, because realize that, for example, in Niger, they are chasing away the French, they are chasing away the French troops, but now they are welcoming in Russia. Neocolonialism to neocolonialism. You get, so at the end of the day, it's going to be another meaningless overthrow, and it's going to still bring in the things that have been complained about these people. So if now they are complaining that this government was bad, if at all this government doesn't improve what they are doing, will it be another coup? Will that become the order of the day? When shall Africa develop? And we're talking about a country that is very rich in uranium. 20% of the world's uranium is coming from Niger. But if they're doing such things and they're failing maybe to adopt better means, they're just exciting the West and the East.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, it's all going to be the same.
All right. Philip, when you're listening to the argument raised by my brother here, Andrew, neocolonialism, straight up to neocolonialism, this brings me to the conversation of external powers. Are they meddlers? Are they our partners? You understand that when the overthrow took place on Wednesday last week, 26th, yes, what happened is the French were being sent away, their flags were being banned, and right now they have cut off supply of uranium to France and gold. But then Russia, as an ally, is being welcomed into France, into Niger. So this brings me to the conversation of, first of all, I want to address the aspect of human rights, because I understand right now what has happened in Niger is they have suspended all government institutions. They have established a curfew. That means freedom of expression and movement is curtailed. Address human rights, but as you address human rights, look into the other aspect of the external powers. Are they meddlers or are they our partners?
I think they are both. First of all, there is no doubt we are back to Cold War politics. We are at such a time where the world is struggling for resources. The USA does not have resources to run its economy. Europe the same. China the same. Russia the same. And there is this semi-virgin Africa that is out there with plenty of resources. So there is no doubt the West is, the global powers are at play on this continent. You should not forget that Niger is home to thousands of special force officers from France. That is one. Two, they are home to the French officers that were in Burkina Faso and Mali. This is too huge for a country like Niger, one of the poorest nations on this planet. You can't have all those military people from France. You have an American base in there. What happens? So the Western powers are really meddling in the politics, but also you must think about the location of Niger. You mentioned the resources. You are sharing a border with Burkina Faso. You are sharing a border with Niger. You are sharing a border, with Mali, and not so far away from Guinea, not so far away from Chad. A border with Libya. And there is something that is so common with all these countries that I'm mentioning. There has been a coup in each of these countries.
Sure.
And what happens is that France, USA, the West condemned the coup in Burkina Faso, the coup in Mali. They did not condemn the coup in Chad. They did not condemn the one in Libya in 2011 when Muammar Gaddafi was being killed. This clearly shows you that there are double standards. One will condemn what doesn't work for him because the other is taking power, is taking center stage in that particular nation. And you must be very, very careful. Russia is silent, but in the silence, they are taking up space. They are taking opportunity, any vulnerability that arises from the West, they come to fit in. They are being isolated in Europe, they are being isolated by the America, and they have to look for new partners at all costs. Now, when you are a poor country like Niger, a poor country like Mali, a poor country like Guinea, and these people are coming up with a beautiful offer. You saw the offers that are being given at the Russia-Africa Summit, which, yes, I had colleague praising it, but the documentation could be good, but why would you have hundreds of African leaders flying to meet one leader somewhere else? Why wouldn't that leader come to Africa and meet them here? That's something to discuss another time. Anyway, having all these powers, playing their politics on the African continent, interested in these resources, I must remind you that in this year, you've had the vice president of the United States traveling through Africa, the president of France, the chancellor of Germany, the head of the Anglican Church, the Pope has been on the African continent, and so many other world leaders. The Prime Minister of China has been here. Date back to colonialism, before the Berlin Conference, what happened? Similar people visited the African continent. Heads of those powerful nations and heads of religions. Don't we learn from history? What's happening next? If a leader is taking power in your country and he says, for me, come rain, come sunshine, I'm pro Vladimir Putin. Me, I'm pro whoever, America, I'm pro China, I'm pro this.
All right.
What about your nation?
Maybe as we wind up on that and bring in the aspect of human rights,
Yes.
what is happening in Niger? Does the coup in Niger, therefore, one or the other, because we're seeing they have put in place a curfew, they've suspended all government institutions. What does this mean? Does the coming of this new government offer accountability and transparency, or does it present otherwise?
You see, we so much like to talk about the beautiful things that are supposed to happen in nations, but you don't start discussing KFC in a family that slept on an empty stomach. We have to handle the groundwork first. Yes, you want accountability, you are talking about democracy, whatever it is, I don't understand. This Niger here, you're asking of accountability. What are they producing? What do they have to account? I understand more than 80% of their budget is external. More than 80%. So what do they have to account to? A donor will fund their priority, not your priority. So maybe if this coup is bringing in a leader that is going to steer Niger to become a producing country, a country that is going to have money, an economy, then you talk about accountability. The African continent has for so long been in a position where we are trying to pluck values of a particular society. You talk about human rights. Yes, human rights are good. You talk about accountability. You talk about what you call democracy. You talk about all those things. But you're bringing them on to a people that are illiterate, a people that are very poor. They are not earning. And you are telling them, oh, you must account for this, you must embrace this human right and the other one. How do you tell someone who is hungry to really look at a mango on a tree and say, this is not my mango? They're hungry, they're dying of hunger. I think the bigger question or the bigger idea to answer to is the issues of the people. If the people are strong enough economically, if the people have enough food, if the people have where to sleep, then certainly they'll have the power to talk to General Gianni, who took power. They'll have the power to talk to Assimi Goita. They'll have the power to talk to Traore. But if they are poor, Gianni will take advantage of the opportunity. And before you know it, power will be somewhere.
Okay. Thank you. That has been wonderful. Andrew.
Yes, please.
Not Andrew. Nyombi Haruna.
Yes.
Nyombi Haruna. My question is in line of social and the cultural impact. You understand when a military coup happens, definitely it goes ahead and affects the social cohesion of a society. So as you maybe prepare, analyze how this particular military coup goes ahead and affects the social and cultural cohesion of the people of Niger.
Like I stated earlier on, the problems in Niger are cutting across the entire Africa, where people, first of all, the people have been disenfranchised, and so that's why when my brother was speaking, told you, yeah, those who have come to the street to celebrate, if the situation was good prior to the coup, they shouldn't have come to the street to celebrate or even show support to the coup leaders. I think the same thing even happened in Burkina Faso and recently in Guinea-Bissau. You realize whenever there's been a coup, people have been, it's their only way of maybe bringing back hope to them, because they were left with no options. They had no power to ensure that there is maybe a peaceful transition or change of power from one person to the other. Even here, although we are talking about a president who has been in leadership for only 2 years, we're not certain how did he come to leadership.
No,
Probably it was just an entrenchment.
No, he was actually elected.
Yes, yes.
Democratically.
Like I told you, we are always having cosmetic elections here in Africa. So he could have come here to power. He could have come to power,
Maybe if
democratically elected, but it could have been even an extension of the people who were in government and even others, or even at the moment, the 2 years that he has been in power, there are some, there must have been some oversight that things are not moving on well, and so this person, okay, let's put this to an end. Back to the question of the impact on the culture and social welfare of the people. Yes, it's costly. The people now, apparent people, it's very hard for kids to go to schools, to even access the social services.
That's being imposed.
Yeah, people cannot freely exercise their rights because of this. But that is the situation that they have been put in. You may not entirely put it on the coup leaders, but where it emanates from. Because if things were moving on well, I don't think we would have this coup. That notwithstanding, like I said earlier on, greed on either side. Someone would be there and say, I must be president. Come rain, come sunshine. So they could not even wait for another election. But on the large scale, they are the problems that we are having in Africa: governance issues, disrespect of the rule of law and constitutionalism, even human rights. If those things are not upheld, it doesn't matter whether you're in government for 1 year or even 6 months, because my right to health will not allow me, if my right to health is abused, I shouldn't wait for you to stay there maybe until the next election, because it's about my life. There must be ways that we should put in place to make sure these people does not entrench their kind of leadership. Well, as a propagator for rule of law, maybe they should have waited, but not all people would be patient enough.
But the desire for change is in everyone. People want to see a change.
That's true.
People want to see a change. Maybe before you complete, Philip has something to say.
Yes, Philip.
I think Comrade mentioned something about the continuity and where Bazoum came from. Bazoum happens to be a co-founder of the political party that brought the former president to power. He's a co-founder. And since the 90s, he's been a minister, the latest having been minister for the presidency, but also internal affairs in Niger. So this is a person who has grown through the system. The people know who he is. The people know what he can do and what he's done over time with the former colleague. The challenge that arose between Bazoum and the leader of the presidential guard, General Chiani, Omar Chiani, is that in 2021, when Bazoum had been elected and declared winner, there's a group of military officers that tried to take control of Niger.
Yeah.
They didn't want Bazoum to swear in.
An attempted coup happened.
Yes. And it is General Chiani that stopped this attempt, arrested the other guys, and ensured Bazoum was able to swear in and become president. What happens after is that, like anyone has done such a favor for you, Chian goes on to think that because he had some influence in the coming of Bazoum, he will certainly hold much more power than Bazoum. And any leader in the world, whether you're an LC1 chairman or whatever, Classmont and so on, you don't want someone to sound more powerful than you are in your space. You're a leader. And that's where the friction came in. And the evening of it was that Bazoum was thinking of removing Chiani from his position as head of the presidential guard.
The same thing that happened in Uganda in the times of Obote and Amin.
Yes.
You understand that when Obote understood that Amin, with the then, I think, the minister of, by the name, I think Obama something, Amin had swindled funds to engage into wrangles that are happening in what? South Sudan. So when Obote got to know about it, and when he wanted to remove Amin out of office, Amin was like, he overthrew Obote. Now, the same things that are happening, the aspect of people not being wanted to be held accountable is something that runs deep in our system and in our countries.
Drake, given his account, you would agree with me that these people disagreed and even trying to entrench a leadership. Now, imagine, like he has said, this person has been in government, though he's now the president, but he's been in the same government. We're only changing from one person to the other, but the same system hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And this is common to all African countries. We are trying to put their elections to paint a picture that there is a transition, yet there is a continuation
Of the same.
of the same system. In the countries, let's talk about South Africa. How can you explain to me that since independence, the South Africans got their independence, the people of South Africa only want the ANC? We are looking at only leaders changing, but this is the same party. Don't you think this party has got its own weaknesses?
Someone would bring an argument that is every political party, their intent, if they're in power, is to retain and keep the power.
Yeah. Now, in that circumstance where they're trying to retain power, there are many things that they are doing to keep that power at the expense of the common people. And therefore, the people have got no other option. And so if the military is taking over, that's the only option that is there. Even the ones in the military are looking at these things.
Okay.
How can it be rolled? Okay, this is one party year in, year out. Because they have money, they have the resources.
Let me just hold you there and engage my sister here. Haruna's argument is, even if we have these military coups coming in place, they're still going to inherit a rotten system, and they will still carry out the same rotten system or the same actions that was there before by their predecessors that have overthrown. He gives us an example of the ANC. The ANC has been in power ever since.
Get me right. The coups are as a result of the system, the rotten system that we are having. Maybe there is some kind of hope that these coups are going to change something, because there are no other options.
Definitely.
Left for the person.
So his argument is the coups offer hope, right? The aspect of change.
Yes.
In your opinion, because people are yearning for this change. Yeah? Let's say in Uganda, today we woke up and there was a change. Do you think possibly those coups, from his arguments, we woke up tomorrow, there's a different leader in power? Do you think we shall have a different Uganda? Or will Niger be any different?
Thank you so much, Drake. It's quite getting interesting and intense. To me, I would feel, there would be change. There would be change if there is a rise of people that are looking towards seeing that the common people are being let me say, their voices are being heard.
Mm.
But then it also baffles me at some point that each time there is a change arising, we'll see the zeal and the citizens will buy the idea of the new person coming up. I'll use an instance of Bobby Wine. Yeah, we've seen the zeal he comes with, and people have liked it just because they are desperate for change. But then what now changes the whole narrative is when this person gets to power. Are they still keeping the same notion they had before, when they were trying to win over the hearts of the citizens that are desperate, that are really yearning for a change? So it is something that is, I think it now comes back to an individual. As you
Correct.
desire to lead the people, are you holding your integrity? Are you being honest to that you're speaking to them from time go to up to the time where you are set where you really want to be? So it comes back to us, the African leaders, as you're trying to win over change. And I think some of these things are persistent because as a military coup repeatedly takes on trend in countries now like Niger that we're talking about here in this case, just drawing back to the individual interests in maybe taking off power.
Yeah.
Have they taken off time to see that this is what is not right? We should do away with it and then set up something that is right in the same system, like the pre-current speaker has been saying, to make things better. But since it is the same, that's why we are seeing more of this happening. We opt to see someone bring change, but then we are going to see the same thing. So I feel there is something within the system that has to be set right.
Okay. All right.
To effect change.
And allow me to break you there, and then we just go for a short break. Then we come back and we conclude on your argument. Then we explore other avenues in tonight's conversation, looking into what ECOWAS is doing, the economic community of West African countries, what they're saying, their condemnation of the coup among others. But from that, we shall get back to you. You conclude on your argument, then we explore other points. Right now, you're listening and watching the inter-university debate. Let's go for a short break and we'll be right back.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create, and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Dear viewers, welcome back from that short break. Right before we went into the break, we were discussing Niger coup. Have military takeovers offered the desired change? And these young, energetic panelists have been doing justice to tonight's topic. But right now, I want us to look into regional intervention, the regional blocks that there is. Andrew, you understand that when the military coup happened in Niger, ECOWAS, that is the Economic Community of West African countries, of West African states, came and condemned the coup and said, if at all they do not restore the president in Bazoum, Mohamed Bazoum, they would intervene into the powers. They would intervene and reinstate the president into power. That same statement was supported by France. It was also supported by the United States, right? Now, later on we see Mali and Burkina Faso that at the moment have military juntas as interim presidents, Yes, I don't know, call them interim presidents or the council leaders, whichever, but the presidents. When they were in Moscow, in Russia, they requested Putin and Russia to support them to go ahead and help Niger in case there's any intervention from ECOWAS, from France, and from the United States. What do you make of that?
Thank you very much, Drake. This relates so much to the previous argument I was trying to make. You know, I was listening to my colleague, and he was somehow bringing out the same point I was saying.
Yeah.
You know, my colleague here was saying that these people are out there celebrating because they are happy.
Change.
You know, there's change. But as you've heard the history of this man who has been overthrown, you know, they had some kind of altercation with the person who has now overthrown him. So now this person is also just coming up because he has his issues, you know, and he's putting his issues that he has with the person who was president onto the whole country. So these are guys who are just coming up with no ideas, baseless. They just want to show that they can also, you know, do something. You get? So at the end of the day, these people who are out there celebrating, and the same people are going to be celebrating for the next coup that may, God forbid, happen. So it's really just interesting. However, going back to what you've asked me, you've asked me about ECOWAS and their plans to their threats. Let me call them threats.
Yeah.
To intervene, reinstate the president. I was seeing France was also threatening that if you touch any person from France, you know, they're diplomats. They will do. There's a big word they use, and we shall intervene, and it will not
to protect their individuals.
Yeah, and it will be untraceable. You know, so it's just interesting that one, these people who have overthrown the government are saying that there was a lot of insecurity. France was being involved so much into their colonizer was so much into their affairs. They have suspended the military, which is okay, which I support 100%. African countries should be independent. You know, we don't need external armies to come here and to help us do what? You know, Africa is supposed to be governed by Africans. You know, which I support. However, what I disagree with is what ECOWAS is trying to do, or what ECOWAS is proposing to do. Because first and foremost, how possible is it? This is not the first time ECOWAS is threatening. You know, in 2020, when there was an insurgence of these coups in West Africa, ECOWAS sat down and they agreed that they are going to come up with an army to help in case of such insurgencies. But what happened? They failed to get the money. You know, all those countries failed to sit down.
Allow me to interject, but you understand we failed to get the money then. But now, with the support from the Western powers, definitely
the support has always been there. France has always been in these things. The support has always been there, but they sat down them as ECOWAS countries, and they failed to find to get, you know, to get money to actually support this initiative. You get, and this happened when most of these countries were on board. Now we are seeing countries like Mali. The president of Mali the other day was in Niger. You know, he was there meeting the president who had been overthrown. You get, so now the possibility of this happening is going to be is questionable, and also what it's bringing on the African continent. I don't find it reasonable at all. You get, so ECOWAS should find other ways. They should maybe sit down and try and understand where these guys are coming from, because we have seen bigger bodies trying to intervene in coups in Africa. The UN has tried, but they have failed also. You get, so who is ECOWAS? You know, so these are just threats that are on paper. These are just threats to excite the public and what. By the end of the day, they are going to die the same way they have been brought in. You get, so I don't believe that ECOWAS is, first of all, capable of doing this, and I don't think that even if they tried with the support of France and the West, they can. And even if they did, they are now going to start bringing in another faction, because now the junta that has taken over the power is also now running to Russia. And Russia is willing, Russia is desperate. We all know how Russia has been perceived over the past years, you know, with its invasion of Ukraine and all other things. You know, the West has beef on it. So now this is going to become another Cold War, as he said, of first of all ideologies. And if we're not careful, we may have another physical war in West Africa. Because now these guys are going to start pumping in a lot of money they have failed to fight each other that side. I wonder, these people, they're saying that they have different ideologies. But why isn't the US attacking Russia? Why are they fighting their wars in Africa? Why is now the US supporting a faction in Africa, and also Russia coming out to support another faction in Africa? They want to fight their wars from here. They're going at the end of the day, we are going to go back to the other thing of, now that the war is done, please help us. Our citizens are suffering. We are hungry. There's drought. What? That is where they are taking us, and that is why I don't support any of the stuff that is happening that side. You get? So ECOWAS should first and foremost stand by its ideologies. They shouldn't now be influenced by the West to now come and bring up exceptions to that general rule of peace that now we are going to use force. As who? You get? You're now going to make the people who are supposed to be enjoying the fruits from their country, however poor it may be, people who are supposed to be enjoying these fruits, you're just going to now put a war on them, which is unjustified, just because you want to show that you have the capacity to bring back a president. At the end of the day, it's going to make Africa go back to a place where we have been fighting to remove it. You get? And let me say this just out of context. The funny thing is that the people who are fighting, these are people who are proposing all these things. These are people who are of a high age. As the young people, and probably the young people who are taking power in Niger, are just seated. And these people are now deciding for us. Afterwards, when they are now retiring, we shall be the ones suffering, appearing like beggars to the West, which we are tired of. You get? So it is totally unreasonable, and they shouldn't even think about it.
All right. Philip.
Yes.
Just when we're having the break, you mentioned democracy. And I was silently listening, and that was the line of question I wanted to bring for you. Is democracy the desired tool for change in Africa, or there's an alternative?
Thank you, Drake. Before I address democracy, or perhaps I'll address it within this one, colleague mentioned that coups are completely a bad thing and they shouldn't happen anywhere in the world. I would want to remind him that had China not gotten that Chairman Mao Zedong coup in 1949, they wouldn't be where they are now. Had the Bolsheviks not taken over Soviet Union in 1917, it wouldn't be the Russia we see today. So it's not the vehicle, it's the driver.
Drake, maybe just to rebut.
Please let him come in.
Just those days we are talking about.
Yes.
These were days where the Industrial Revolution was just coming in.
Okay.
You get? First of all, the population of the people, it was still very low. Very, very low. These people, those days, they still had ideas that were best at heart. You get? These are people who really wanted change. Now we are seeing someone who is orchestrating a coup, who is driving a truck of a coup just because they didn't give him the power he wanted. That is totally unreasonable. And if that is the ideology that is coming with these coups, we are going to keep on seeing what happened with Robert Mugabe. They overthrow the man, then the person who comes in also retires, says, I cannot handle this, it is too much for me. What happened in Equatorial Guinea? 2 coups in the same year. That is what is going to keep on happening. You can't compare times of these days and times of those days, because those days there was really a lot of patriotism, even in Uganda. So
I think he tries to agree with my point that it's not the strategy, it's the driver. Had Chairman Mao Zedong acted like the person you mentioned that is bad, then things would have gone the other way around in China. Had Harry Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore acted the other way around, then Singapore would be another very poor nation somewhere there. But we know what he did, and so it's, if the driver is steady, then the country will go forward. If the driver is a bad one, then certainly things will not work out.
Yeah.
Like, I should disagree with you.
Please.
It shouldn't be about the person. It should be about the people.
Yes.
A country shouldn't be built on an individual.
video.
It should be built on the people's will.
No,
The majority.
but
is
you
not
see-
the
Individuals
See,
are bringing
guys,
individual interests.
let's agree that leaders are required to help direct the people, right?
Yes.
Just like you have a shepherd who directs the flock. Citizens or a country also needs that one leader to direct the citizenry.
I agree
See
with
South
you.
Africa.
Yes.
See South Africa. Every South African rallied behind Nelson Mandela. And where is South Africa right now?
There's still where Nelson left
The
it.
point is, the leaders should be directing the people, but in line with the aspirations of
the
those
people.
people. What do
Okay,
the
now,
people want?
That should not be the argument. The argument should be, do those leaders represent the spirit of the people?
Unfortunately.
And that is something
Exactly.
is answering.
So that is something you have to debate. Is Genomal Gianni representing the ideas of the people? He has time to answer that. Is Assimi Goita answering to the problems of Mali? He has to answer that. Is Ibrahim Traoré answering to the challenges of Burkina Faso? Is Doumbouya answering to the challenges of Guinea? That is the question. That is the answer, rather. I want to tell you that the African continent must find something, a system that suits it. Not import a system, but create a system. You must have a system that has your values embedded in it. You don't get a system that has values of another individual embedded in it. It is not sustainable. You will not manage it.
So your argument is democracy is
And
unsustainable.
these are the challenges. If we want to build a system around democracy, let it be democracy, but an African-grown democracy.
Paint for us that picture of an African democracy.
Many years before in the 90s,
Yeah.
the biggest part, actually from independence to the 90s, the biggest percentage of Africa, if not the whole of Africa, was fairly communist. And in calling it communist is having one political party and a leader, which political party keeps on changing leadership. And we are talking about democracy and changing leadership, and a leader who represents the ideals of the people and is ready to do what the people want. Now, we had Africa. For example, if I use Tanzania, you have CCM with its leader Julius Nyerere, who is serving the people. Then a time comes, Nyerere says, my time is done. Through this political party, let us choose another leader who is going to do the will of the people. Not necessarily having many powers of, say, there's something, and I don't want to be misquoted. When we talk democracy, we basically mean having many political parties and regular elections. Yes. What are these political parties creating in these countries? Powers to oppose, powers to have different ideas, which is a good thing. But how about these ideas were seated on the same table? How would it be like? Do you think that the CCM, in talking to all the people that opposed it in Tanzania, which later led to them, okay, it was when Nyerere came to power, let me be very clear with this example. Nyerere came to power in Tanzania. We had Tanganyika and we had Zanzibar, those two nations. He sits, he says, I have this idea. Ismail has the other idea, and these other people have this idea. Come guys, let's sit. Your idea is, let's go democratic, let's have these elections, let's do ABCD. My idea is that let us create an engine that drives this country. We put it together. We forget all the different forces of ethnicity, the forces of religion, the forces of playing multi-party politics and so on. We sit, we agree and move this country forward. This process resulted into the unification of Tanganyika and Zanzibar to create one nation. I want to believe that was a very bad thing for Tanzania, according to my colleague here. And I want to believe that because it was not democracy, then it is not something you can sit on and say, oh, we celebrate this African country for they achieved this without this democracy. And if you say democracy is something that talks for the people, were the people of Tanzania not interested in having that country unified so that they expand their market, so that they talk as Tanzanians, not as this tribe and the other tribe and the other tribe? Over time, we've seen political parties coming on this continent because it is something imported and implanted. A political party starts, it is for the Kikuyus because the Kikuyus started it. A political party starts, it is for the Kalenjins, it is for the... So these are highlighting the small things that will separate us, that will divide us.
Definitely, religion, tribe, that is something that separates us as Africans. In a continent of over 2,000 ethnic groups, it's very, very hard to get a unifying factor that brings us together. Unlike the European countries, that they are brought together on grounds of, first of all, their color. Most of them are white. Two, if you go to the West, they speak English, right?
Can I disagree with you?
There is that unity.
Can I
But
disagree with you?
Here in East Africa, we are even struggling to unite East Africa on grounds of one, economic disparities, two, language, which recently we just celebrated Swahili Day, but we are finding very many challenges. Now, having that Africanized democratic system, it is something that is seemingly somewhat impossible, in my opinion.
The African continent has 1.5 billion people.
Definitely.
But our languages are mainly in 4 categories, around 4. The Europe you bring as an example, even with the European Union, you know that in France they speak French, Britain English, Norway they have their language, Germany every country has their language. Do we agree?
Let us...
Number 2, just a second.
Conclude and then we bring my brother. I will just bring the debate. Because when you realize, let me just speak for an example in Uganda. Uganda has over 56 tribes.
Yes, there.
And all those 56 tribes speak different languages. You go to northern Uganda, you have people who speak Luo, people who speak Langi, people who speak Lugbara, people who speak many languages. Yeah? You go to the Europe that you're citing, you get a country like Norway, they would speak one language. So
that actually shows you that these people could not manage the differences among the very small differences.
Yeah.
Every country is a tribe. Here we have countries that have managed to live with the diversity of tribes you talk about.
Yeah.
Mind you, the only reason we have these very many tribes is because of the divisions we've created among ourselves. The Baganda, the Basoga, the Banyankole, Bachi.
Bring back the conversation now back to democracy.
Yes, that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
When you say Africa cannot find something they can unite about because we have different languages, we have different... I would actually say Europe wouldn't have found something to unite around. First, you must agree with me that the First World War, and more specifically the Second World War, was a tribal war, because the tribes in Europe could not agree. Africa, over hundreds of years, has managed to live with these tribes without any major tribal wars. Meaning, through this diversity and our languages that are interlinked, when a northern Ugandan speaks, a Luo will understand. When from Uganda, from this central part of Uganda, way down to South Africa, our languages are interlinked. When a South African speaks and you understand your Luganda very well, you will understand what they're speaking. How about we unite around these factors and create our leadership around these factors with our own African values, other than thinking we only have to import something. And if that something is not from the West, then it is not something good for us.
Great.
All right, let us have Nyombi. Looks like we're having a very heated debate.
If it was a song, we are playing different instruments, but playing them on the same lyrics. Our problems as Africans are almost similar. As we stated here, our problem is good health, education, and having something to put in our pockets.
I think those are global problems.
That cuts across
But Africa is the worst hit.
Yes.
We might debate that.
Cuts across to every individual in the continent and even world over. Now, on top of those problems, we are having two different sides of people. Those that cannot access what they need, and even those that have power over that the majority of the people need in these respective countries. That's where our problem arises from. He talked of Tanganyika and Zanzibar. Yes, it was a proposal by their founding father, Mr. Julius Nyerere, but he did not impose that idea on the people.
Which is democracy.
He brought it to them, and they accepted. All the people of the country, of those two different nations, Zanzibar and Tanganyika, to come together, cooperate, and form one particular country. They did not impose it like other countries, like our leaders, other leaders do. This is what I think. I impose it on the citizens. It shouldn't work that way. People should be given chance to decide on what they want in their own country. How the affairs of their country should be run. If you
Philip wants to interject, he's burning.
No, I just want to say that I'm so glad the comrade is agreeing with me that you can actually sit, not necessarily having multi-party politics, but agree on what is good for you and drive you.
Let me help. Let me disregard this conversation.
It's about the aspirations of the people, the majority of the people over the minority. Let the majority decide, this is where I want our country.
So, one question. Do you therefore suggest that we need democracy or military coups?
Definitely we need a democracy. If we have a democracy,
I think that's a
there's
wrong
no
comparison.
for military coups. Because military coups, cause in one way, actually, they undermine democracy. Because this is not the will of the people. They are just having
one final question.
Yes, please.
I asked him to Africanize for us the concept of democracy, and he tried it. Now, that is something we should possibly emulate. But in due process of emulating that Africanized democratic concept, how possible or how feasible will that be? Because your argument is the leaders that we put in power should represent the spirit and aspirations of the people. And I do believe that possibly those leaders capture and emulate the spirit of an African man.
Yes.
They should. And even if they don't, the same people that have given them the mandate should still have that power to put them out of those offices. Unfortunately, that's not happening across the entire continent. Even where we think there's a kind of democracy,
Kenya is having
the semblance of democracy. I don't want to take it back what happened in that area.
Right.
The Niger that we are talking about here, yes, they had elections. But if we take an audit of those elections, were they credible enough? We talked about the leader that has been hosted. He's been serving that government. I won't tell you, it must have been even an entrenchment of the previous leadership that, okay, we are now changing this face, but the system is running underground. Like you see it here in Uganda, maybe I should talk about it here. We're having the NRM government, but they are preparing some other person that's coming.
Why are these elections failing?
System. It's because of the selfish and greedy leaders that we are having. The people who are running these.
It's all right. Let me first.
Just before you go to her, you talk about the ECOWAS. The ECOWAS and even other regional bodies are being hypocritical. They should be pro people and not pro leaders, their colleagues. Because you have them, because Philip has been hosted and this has been part of our table, our dining table. It's more like a home where you're having the neighborhood, the father is always mistreating the children or the family members in that area. But because you as the neighbor, you're getting, this person is always giving you food, you keep quiet. And then now the neighbors are the children, or even the spouse of that person is turning against them, feel, oh, something bad is happening at home. Yet you've been keeping quiet all along. This is what these regional bodies are doing in this country.
But they're fighting for democracy.
They're just hypocritical. If they're fighting for democracy, they saw what was happening in Sudan. We had a despot for over 30 years there, mistreating the people in that place. Then he was toppled. We had we are now having two different factions that are fighting that area. They are silent, they're not doing anything. The same thing was happening in Libya, and they were keeping quiet. And now they want to come in. Same script that's happening.
It's
There's
alright.
hypocrisy in this country and these
In
regional
continent.
bodies.
Okay. Let me come to you, Gloria. Right now we are having a very heated debate. What do you have to say? Do we at this point need an Africanized concept of democracy?
Yeah, definitely, yes. Because that would
Wow.
be a unifying factor for all of us. And it keeps us away from forces that are trying to bring back neo-colonialism.
Are we
I'd
allowed to
feel it
shake
would
hands
be-
on the show?
You shake our hands and you're done.
Okay.
I feel that would really be perfect because it sets a ground for all of us to have a voice that speaks out the same problems we're facing and find ways to deal with them.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. She gives a very concise but straightforward and nice response. Perfect. You feel like I see you want to say something. Philip, say what you have to say in less than a minute.
You see, the trouble we've had as the African continent is that we've embraced what is not ours for so long. And it has sort of become ours.
Our new normal.
Yes. This is not us. This is not us.
First,
And
stop.
there is
Asking,
no,
eh?
there is no single,
You'll get
there is no single part of the world that has developed where we want to go by embracing what is not theirs. They have stacked what is theirs, and they've found a way of evolving around what is theirs to make themselves better. And that's why we are running towards these parts of the world. That is why our kids die in the oceans and the seas trying to cross these parts of the world, because these people came around what is theirs, they loved it, they built it, they perfected it, and we're admiring it.
Okay.
You know, when you're talking about adopting things, you know, you must look at what is good and what is going to work. You get?
African is bad?
Because us as Africans, we're used to not maybe putting on our back cloth. You know, right now we wouldn't be putting on suits because it's not our way. when Mr. Philip is talking about democracy, I'm failing to understand his understanding of democracy because he says he gave an example of Tanganyika. The only example he has given of Africanizing, but let me show him that is democracy. When you're talking about democracy, we're not talking about the elections. When you say that there's democracy in my home, you get, because democracy is not only national. Democracy can even happen in your classroom or even at your home. You get, when you say that there's democracy at my home, I'm going by the will of the people. You get, so when the people in Tanganyika and Zanzibar sat, because I don't think Julius Nyerere woke up and is like, we're going to go with this.
Comrade
which is
Andrew.
happening with the coups.
Comrade Andrew.
Which is happening with the coups.
Let him submit.
You know?
Comrade
Which
Andrew.
is
Let
happening
him
with the
submit.
coups. So what happened in Tanganyika was that these guys agreed, which is clearly from the definition given to us by the Englishmen is democracy.
Did we
It
have
doesn't
they
even
sat
matter
down-
whether what we have agreed
All right,
is bad. As
gentlemen,
long as we have
let
agreed,
him
as long as we
submit.
have agreed.
Let him submit, and then we shall have
You
the
get,
answers
you
why
get.
that
But
question.
what is happening with these coups? You know, because you've asked a very clear question. Should we adopt democracy, or should we go with this democracy, or
We
we still-
Africanize.
or we Africanize it? You know, and he kept on asking the Africanization, but there's no mention of the Africanization.
Africanization
Even
is
the
not
things he's
coups.
talking about, even the
Let him
things
submit.
that brings in the argument, you know, are things from the West. You know, because I don't think round table talks originated from Tanganyika and Zanzibar to create Tanzania. These were things that were there, but it has just been a debate of here and there. But the thing is understanding what democracy means. Democracy is sitting down that we agree that let us take this, which is not this barbaric way of just coming up. You think you're understanding for the people because you agree that probably you aren't given a post that you wanted. You get, so that is the type of politics that we should adopt in Africa, whereby we are going with the will of people. People have said this, you know, let us take up this. I don't think that is what happened in Niger. I don't think that the Kano, I don't know, is the Kano who overthrew the government, went and made any consultations.
He's actually general.
A general, whatever. He didn't do any consultations. So that means he's probably coming up with just a few factions of these people, maybe consulted his family, and then they decided to take up.
What I want to understand from comrades,
Gentlemen,
just one
gentlemen,
thing.
we have reached towards the end of the show. Andrew, as you give us your parting shots, you'll maybe respond when your time comes, in a minute or so, or less. Your parting shots, and way forward.
Yes, my parting shots. First of all, thank you for having me. Sorry, it's a pleasure. Now, my parting shots. You know, when we are looking at these things, sometimes we shouldn't look at things that are short term.
Yeah.
We should look at things that are long term. When you're looking at these coups, you know, they're coming with a lot of side effects.
Yes.
You know, I don't think Mugabe's country is doing the best. Zimbabwe, I don't think it's doing the best because it had a coup. You get? So it all goes down to getting people who have people's interests at heart. You know, adopting a system that is going to be for the people, not moving personal interests. Because at the end of the day, we are going to keep on having the same problems. I told you, if people are on the streets celebrating that they have overthrown a president who has been in office for just 2 years, you know, I'm sure that term goes for 5 years, who has been in office for just 2 years, you know, and they're out celebrating. So if this general, the so-called general, who has overtaken power because he's so aggrieved, because he's so pissed, doesn't deliver, will they be celebrating for another coup? And when will they develop as Africa's leading exporter of uranium? You get? And with Africa having all these resources, if that is going to be the order of the day, coups, then when is Africa going to exploit the minerals? We're just fighting wars of the West. So my parting shots are that we should, instead of supporting all this and that, we should go down to the grassroots. Where is the issue coming from? Poor leaders. Who are bringing poor leaders into this, into governance?
Democracy.
The people. Ask the people who are the ones who are bringing this.
The
So let us, the electorate. So let us improve on how we look at things. Educating the masses. Let us improve on how we look at the things. Because at the end of the day, if we don't stop, we are going to still be on the street celebrating coup after coup.
It's okay. Gloria,
Yes.
your parting shots.
My parting shots about
This topic
it's,
and what you have to tell the young Ugandan there and the African citizen.
Yeah, thanks so much. It has really been interesting. A lot is still being stirred up, but yeah, we really have to come to a conclusion. Yeah, I would agree with what Andrew is saying. And then I would say, just like we've said, should we Africanize? Could it be the way forward? Yeah, just like I agreed before, it is. And the reason as to why I would still say democracy is the way to go, people being able to raise up whatsoever they would desire to see in their country gives you actually the best way to give accountability, because you're going to base on what they told you to do. So if it is not right, definitely you have no say. Since they have the power to put you off and put you on, then it sets everything, I think, in the rightful way. So yeah, I think that would be the best way to go to make sure that things are kept on the right trend. Thanks.
Thank you. Haruna, it's been a heated debate and I feel you still have a lot to say, but
Sure.
summarize what you have to say in
We
less than
shall
a
have
minute.
some other time to have this
Definitely,
more.
we shall pay time.
Mine goes to two different sects. One is for the leaders. Let's stop the ego. Let's look at our countries. Let's look at the continent first before ourselves. Then the other one is to the citizens, the civilians, the people at the ground level. Let's try whatever we can to liberate ourselves, to empower ourselves. If we don't do that, then people will come and use us. They'll take advantage of us. Then we'll be crying year in, year out. Research is saying that most of these coups, the peculiar things about these coups, about stability, insecurity, corruption, basically the standards of the people. And so someone comes and takes advantage of what the people's problems to rise to the ranks and take over that office. As we celebrate, let's also try to liberate ourselves if someone has taken over a government through a coup, let's hold that person accountable. If they don't match the standards that we require, they should go away as well. But now that also should speak to our leaders. Now, like the president was just come, the military leader was just coming. Let him put away his ego.
Yeah.
Let him put the people's interests first. Then
Okay.
they move their country
All
forward.
right.
Thank you so much.
Philip, I'll conclude with you in less than a minute, please.
Thank you, Drake. I think colleagues have had amazing views of the subject at hand, and I will agree with most of them. There are areas where we disagree, but that's the reason we are here. I think it's time for Africa to Africanize every concept of itself, including leadership. If it's democracy, let it be African democracy, and let us agree on that African democracy. For it is only that democracy that will steer the socio-economic transformation we desire on this continent. Otherwise, if we keep on embracing things that are just foreign and we just want, people have built these things for over 200 years, 300 years, 100 years, and we want to put them onto our society in 2 years and in 5 years and they are working, it will not work. Let us build it, let us nurture it, and once it's there, it will help us get what we want to get.
All right. Thank you very much. It has been a very interesting debate, and I can definitely feel the atmosphere in the room right now. People still want to continue with the debate and continue having the discussion. But definitely every nice thing or every nice day or every nice discussion eventually has to come to an end. And from us, Civic Space TV, Center for Constitutional Governance, we say thank you. Continue watching our shows. To the technical crew, Rashid and team, thank you very much for making sure the show is aired right on time. And to my panelists, conclusively, thank you very much for honoring our invitation and making this debate very interesting. Otherwise, I've been your host or moderator. My name is Douglas Rekonet. See you again, same time, same place, next week. Take care.